This presentation is meant to serve as an introduction to the syncretism of Yoruba and Islamic religious cultures in Nigeria. You may already know that Africa is home to many traditional religions, such as that of the Yoruba, that display animist belief and place heavy emphasis on the ecstatic side of religion. However, Yoruba land is known for being home to many unique religions, forming a diverse mix of coexisting cultures. Islam, in particular, is especially dominant, with over 100 million followers in Nigeria. Naturally, these religions have interacted and combined over the years, forming traditions that exhibit characteristics of multiple cultures. But before getting into the specifics, let's first go over how Islam got to Nigeria in the first place. Islam mainly migrated into the country through incoming traders. Nigerian leaders reportedly started converting back in the 11th century, and by the 14th century, Islam gained a foothold amongst the Yoruba. By the 17th century, mosques started to crop up in Yoruba land for use by the locals. This peaceful spread, however, didn't last, as in the 19th century, the Sokoto Caliphate successfully invaded Yoruba land and captured the major city of Ilorin. Islam was assimilated into the city's culture, and the Caliphate went on to destroy the Oyo kingdom before they dissolved. Refugees of the Islamic kingdom fled to nearby towns in Yoruba land, further spreading Islam. One final factor was the indirect rule of Nigeria by Muslim elites for the British during the colonial rule of Nigeria until the 1960s. For the merging of Islamic and Yoruba beliefs to take place, there must have been a degree of similarity between the two systems. For starters, both worshipped one lead deity, with a promise of ascension to a higher spiritual plane for the devoted. However, the Yoruba also use orisas to communicate with Olodumare, their main god, while Islam enforces Allah as their sole god. While the Yoruba also consult the Ifa, or their oracle, for advice, Muslims practice istikhara for advice. For the most part, African converts to Islam upheld the newer regulations of the Quran, yet uphold some of their fundamental original beliefs. Through the syncretism of the two religions, strict changes in religious code emerged. Converts went from living in an openly polygamous culture to one where men were limited to only 4 wives. The introduction of Sharia law was met with backlash around Nigeria, as the culture of devout Muslims often rivaled that of the traditional Yoruba. Adjustments in ceremony were also apparent, yet weren't as drastic as you might expect. This is because existing ceremony was usually not replaced, but instead repurposed. For instance, the Yoruba often bought new clothes to celebrate festivals such as Aso Egungun, and this tradition was instead performed for festivals such as Ileya for converts. Names of places and children were also adjusted from being based on Orisha, such as Sangobiyi, to being based on Allah, such as Oluwa. Most pertinent to this class were adjustments in how music was played. Yoruba Dadakwada poetry was restricted to remove un-Islamic ideas and often now included Quranic verses. During Ramadan, Were music developed from traditional Sakara music to be performed during prayers and fasts. Now, we'll discuss Sakara music. One of the cornerstones of Yoruba music is the konkolo rhythm, which is a 3, 5, or 7-beat rhythm. The syllables present in the rhythm's name mirror its musical presentation, as shown. The beat is normally played on a gong, and what makes it so special is that it can accompany both simple and compound subdivisions in a duple meter. I will now play a quick example of the rhythm. Note that this piece plays the 7-beat variant, starting on the 5th beat shown. One thing to note before analyzing a specific piece is that as many African instruments are unable to play and hold longer notes, beats may instead be represented as multiple identically pitched notes. With that in mind, take a listen to this example of Yoruba Sakara music. The first thing you might notice is the instruments that are used in the song. All these are of African origin and thus produce a unique timbre. The melody starts with a goye, a bowed chordophone. Then the calabash and sekere, both indefinite idiophones, follow. The calabash plays a steady rhythm throughout the piece, and the sekere, which you can hear from the clicking noise since it functions similarly to a maraca, plays the konkolo rhythm. The iya ilu and omele sakara drums are the last to join. They're both membranophones, yet serve a different purpose. While the iya ilu leads the rhythm through improvisation, the omele creates polyrhythm by joining the sekere in the konkolo rhythm. This improvisational technique is fairly common in the call and response structure Yoruba music is centered around. This structure likely emerged due to the nature of possession rituals, where players would have to change musical structure based on which orisa they were attempting to summon into one's body. I will now play a second clip of the song, which will feature a significant change. See if you can figure out what's going on. If you didn't catch it, the rhythm changes from simple to compound subdivision. Basically, the notes are initially played in the form 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, and then become 1 lolly 2 lolly 1 lolly 2 lolly 1 lolly 2 lolly. The important thing to note is that sakara rhythm is present in both sections despite the change in subdivision. So far, we have discussed significant rhythmic complexity due to the changes in subdivision, improvisational nature, and multiple note beats present in sakara music. These overlaying patterns, which don't always follow a single structure, create polyrhythm. However, scholars also claim that this music further contains cross rhythm, which is where emphasized beats of several different rhythms are played together in unison. One notable technique used to further this cross rhythm is hemiola, which is where beats are grouped in ways other than what's expected in a piece of subdivision. In sakara music, this is done in order to position notes horizontally or vertically with respect to each other. But now that we know how sakara music creates a uniquely complex rhythm, we have to answer the question, why? I feel that the answer to this is fairly simple. Music is the strongest link that Islamic syncretists have to the ecstatic aspects of traditional Yoruba religion. To display my point, let's look at another offshoot of Yoruba religion. Santeria is a mixture of traditional Yoruba belief and Christianity, and is practiced by migrants in Cuba. They see their gods Olodumare, Olofi, and Olorun as a representation of the Holy Trinity, with orisas acting as saints that link the Trinity with common people. They still retain Ifa for divination, as well as a belief in Ache, or the organizing power of the cosmos. However, their music genre of juju does not contain the drums that sakara music is built around. This is likely due to the fact that membranophones are regarded as earthly, and thus not used commonly in music meant for Christian religious contexts. So, what does this all mean in relation to Islam? As we know, the stricter regulations present in the Quran means that many of the ideals that are still practiced in Cuban religion are no longer practiced by many in Nigeria. With many spiritual practices altered through syncretism, music is one of the few connections between Islamic Yoruba culture today and traditional Yoruba culture. The complex cross and polyrhythms in sakara music channels the fundamental ecstatic nature of Yoruba religion and a belief system where other outlets for this nature have been overshadowed by Islamic practices. This concludes my presentation on the syncretism of Islam and Yoruba religion. If you have any questions or suggestions for my paper, leave them in the replies below. I'd be happy to read them.